It's funny how people in this world believe that victory always creates a stir. They believe that success must be conspicuous, ostentatious, and indisputable. Silence, however, is what truly bothers them and irritates them. You didn't flaunt yourself. You didn't try to get attention. You didn't enter their race. And for some reason, that's precisely what caused them to feel uneasy. Because you were creating something while they're wearing themselves out, trying to prove something, calmly, gently, and without seeking approval. They were constantly searching for your competitors, your emotions, and your moves, but you provided them with nothing. No hurry, no contrast, and no drama. And the pattern was broken by that, because participants begin to doubt their own position when someone declines to participate in the game. Instead of competing, your development served as a mirror. They began to realize how far behind they actually were in that reflection. It's not empty to be silent. It's the first error individuals make. They believe that nothing is occurring if you are not communicating, responding, or making your every move known. They believe that being silent denotes weakness, passivity, and insignificance. However, the weight of stillness is different. In a manner that noise cannot, it creates pressure. People start coming up with their own explanations when you stop explaining yourself, and those justifications are never kind. They use their anxieties, doubts, and insecurities to fill the voids. When everything around you seems like a race, they wonder what you're doing, what you're planning, and why you're so composed. Your silence becomes an unanswerable inquiry, and people are bothered by queries due to the predictability of noise. It's simple to ritmons to revstruns to everything. You know what they're going to do before they do it. However, aim is concealed by silence. It conceals growth. It conceals change. Tension is produced by that ambiguity. You're quietly constructing your goals while they're busy announcing theirs. You're taking away their need for approval while they're asking for it. You're playing for control rather than attention. Furthermore, an audience is not necessary for control. The pressure starts there. They begin to observe you more intently. They don't understand you, not because you're not communicating with them as you usually do. No complaints, no boasting, no obvious struggle, just presence, constancy, and a calm forward motion. And that makes them uneasy. Because when everyone adheres to the same pattern, people feel at ease in their hearts. Clears throat, angst, contrast, and repeat. It maintains equilibrium. Everyone gets distracted by it. However, the entire beat is upset when someone deviates from that pattern. Their noise is drowned out by your stillness. They begin to doubt themselves. Why am I making so an effort to get noticed? Why do I require affirmation? Why does my effort seem to be weaker than their serenity? They don't want to answer these inquiries, but your silence makes them do so. Silence eliminates distractions, so even though you're not in competition with them, your presence still seems like pressure. It reduces everything to what is truly important. They're not justifications or performances, just outcomes emerging in the background. Even though they are not yet able to see it, humans can sense that. It's like having to prove everything while standing next to someone who isn't attempting to prove anything. That's the power of quiet. It doesn't dispute. It doesn't provide defense. It doesn't look for approbation. It just exists and allows people to deal with their emotions. And the majority of folks aren't prepared for it. They're looking for responses. They want assurance that they're winning, that they're ahead, and that people are taking note. However, you deprive them of such solace when you remain mute. They can't quite put their finger on it, but you become unpredictable and untouchable. Because you didn't say anything, they observe, speculate, and overthink. Growth is not something that most individuals pursue. They seek attention. Before the transition is even started, they want the recognition and the accolades. They gauge their success by counting the number of people who are impressed, the number of people who are watching, and the number of voices that concur. And their momentum vanishes as soon as that focus does. You made a different decision. You entered an area where nobody was applauding, observing, or even aware of what you were constructing. Additionally, you grew more consistent rather than slowing down. They don't comprehend that portion. Because most people become disoriented in the absence of validation. They need someone to reassure them that they are headed in the correct direction. They require confidence that their efforts are valued. However, you eliminated that necessity. Instead of asking yourself, am I doing enough? You began making the decision. I will do what needs to be done. There was no audience, no approval, no outside pressure, just internal discipline. And that kind of thinking isolates you rather than just helping you grow. Because your development becomes brittle when you utilize validation as fuel. One unfavorable viewpoint, one instance of being disregarded, one lack of acknowledgement, and everything begins to tremble. Doubt seeps in, motivation wanes, effort starts to fluctuate. You begin to modify yourself for acceptability rather than advancement. You decline to participate in that game. Even in the absence of feedback, indicators, or immediate outcomes, you continued to move. You had faith in a procedure that no one else could perceive. Furthermore, trust creates something more powerful than confidence. It fosters self-reliance. Your development is no longer dependent on what other people think. When someone has doubts about you, it doesn't stop. Just because someone compliments you doesn't make it go faster. It remains concentrated, steady, and under control. And that's what makes it risky, because people have no control over things that are independent of them. If you're not trying to win their approval, they can't stop you with criticism. If you're not pursuing their attention, they can't divert you with compliments. You become hard to read, hard to manage, and hard to compete with. They begin to question why you're not responding as they had anticipated. Why do you not appear to hear what they have to say? Why is your pace unaffected by their presence? And the reality is straightforward. You're not constructing for them. You're preparing for something more profound, something that doesn't require publicity, something that doesn't require immediate proof. You are aware that genuine development is frequently quiet, monotonous, and even dull. It's not meant to impress folks right away. It's intended to gradually transform you. You're making a commitment to change while they're acting You're counting discipline while they're counting likes. Clears throat. You're being constant to become indisputable while they're changing to remain relevant. Additionally, a different form of presence is created by consistency without validation. A presence that gradually becomes impossible to ignore yet doesn't beg to be seen. Your initial steps can go unnoticed by them. They might not notice your initial efforts, they might even think less of your quiet. However, they overlook the fact that growth doesn't slow down in the absence of confirmation. It makes compounds. Every silent effort adds up. Every subtle advancement adds up. Every instant of self-control accumulates weight until one day it's no longer subtle, at which point the same individuals who never witnessed you working begin to wonder how you managed to get so far without their knowledge. Most people enter the trap of competition without giving it any thought. They are taught to compare themselves to others from the start. Quicker than them, superior than them, before them. Every action is taken with someone else in mind, and everything turns into a comparison. They are unaware that they have given the exact individuals they are attempting to surpass command of their course. You broke free from the pattern after seeing it, because your attention changes as soon as you enter a competition. Growth is no longer the focus. It has to do with position. Improvement is no longer a concern. It has to do with comparing. You start wondering how far ahead you are instead of how far you can go, and everything is limited by that question. You're always reacting while you're pursuing someone. You change your pace according to theirs. Your value is determined by their advancement. When you're ahead, you celebrate. When you're down, you start to doubt yourself. Your perspective becomes reliant and erratic due to factors you are unable to completely control. You turned down that reliance. You didn't have to outperform them. You had to improve upon yesterday's version of yourself. The entire game is altered by that alteration. because your advancement is no longer limited by the speed of another person. Comparison does not establish a finish line. There is just unceasing movement, unrelenting emphasis on your own path, and steady improvement in it. And that level of concentration is uncommon. You're moving without interruption while they're keeping an eye on each other and analyzing every step in an attempt to stay ahead. Nothing needs to be proven. There's no need to reply. You don't have to participate in a race that wasn't yours in the first place. They find it unnerving because competition offers them a sense of control. It allows them to gauge their current situation. However, they lose their frame of reference when you take yourself out of that system. You're not on the same track, so they can't tell if you're ahead of them or behind them. And they are troubled by that uncertainty. You are drawn back into the game by them. Efforts to elicit a response are challenged by subtle analogies. They want to see if you will react, interact, and demonstrate that you belong to the same race, because you return to their world once you respond, compare, and compete. However, you did not go out. They didn't understand what you did. You can be pushed by competition, but it can also constrain you. It can be distracting as well as motivating, and for the majority of people, it turns into an unbreakable cycle. Never completely satisfied, constantly comparing, constantly chasing. You selected an alternative type of internal pressure, one that originates from your own standards, aspirations, and dedication to progress rather than from other people. Additionally, that pressure is constant. It is independent of the people in your immediate vicinity and their actions. It doesn't change. Your growth feels different because of this. It doesn't react. It's deliberate. It's not hurried. It's under control. You're not attempting to surpass anyone. You're attempting to move past your history. And such process has a stronger base but a slower appearance. For a while, they might run ahead. They might receive ashes. However, their speed depends on the race. It has to do with discipline. Furthermore, unlike competitiveness, discipline does not lead to burnout. As a result, you continue to move forward uninterrupted while others continue to glance sideways, monitoring positions and making adjustments based on others. There are no interruptions. There are no parallels. You don't have to defend your position, so you're not standing at all. You're utilizing a mindset they don't comprehend to develop something they can't measure on a road they can't follow. Mirrors are disliked by people, not authentic ones, those that don't filter, flatten, or change the angle to suit their comfort level. Reflections that shield their ego are preferred over those that reveal it. In order to prevent themselves from seeing themselves clearly, individuals frequently surround themselves with distractions, noise, and comparisons. Then you appear without making any effort to display anything. You don't discuss your work very often. You don't describe your methodology. You don't look for attention. You simply keep getting better little by little, silently and steadily, and steadily. And for some reason, that is sufficient to change the environment around you, because your growth begins to function as a mirror, not because you push it, but just because it is there. People are unable to overlook the contrast created when they witness someone moving forward without drama, excuses, or continual validation. It draws attention to the differences between intention and effort, between speaking and acting, and between potential and actuality. It's awkward, that distance. They begin making unintentional comparisons, internal rather than the typical boisterous, competitive manner. Silent queries start to emerge. What makes them so reliable? Why do they not appear to be preoccupied? Why are they getting better without announcing it? What am I lacking? You never ask them to think critically about themselves. You never advise them to examine their own routines, discipline, or behaviors. However, your presence does it anyhow, because misunderstanding is shown when someone else moves clearly. Inconsistency is shown when someone else is disciplined. Distraction is revealed when someone else is concentrating. The true mirror accomplishes that. It doesn't launch an assault, it doesn't pass judgment, it is silent, it just reflects. Furthermore, introspection has the potential to be more potent than criticism, because it is possible to disregard criticism. It can be debated, disregarded, or reduced to noise. However, a reflection endures. It reveals something they attempt to avoid, yet are reminded of their own procrastination when they observe your discipline. Your forbearance is evident to them, which emphasizes their need for immediate results. They can see how dependent they are on noise when you are silent. They weren't in competition with you. However, your development gave them the impression that they were still lagging behind, because someone doesn't need to pursue others to put pressure on them when they are genuinely making progress. Their presence becomes sufficient. Even the quiet things they do begin to change how other people perceive them. And not everyone responds favorably to that. Some people are motivated. They decide to raise their own expectations after seeing how far you've come. They embrace the introspection and use it to their own development. Some people oppose it. They make an effort to minimize your efforts. They doubt it, criticize it, and disregard it. Anything to avoid confronting what they see. Because acknowledging the reflection entails acknowledging accountability. It entails acknowledging that you are not to blame for the distance they see. They are to blame. And dealing with that is difficult. Thus, they produce justifications. They convince themselves, you got lucky, you had advantages. You're unique and extreme. Anything that might lessen the reflection's clarity, accuracy, and threat. However, the mirror remains unchanged despite their best efforts to distort it. Your advancement remains genuine. Over time, it continues to grow, move, and become more noticeable. Additionally, the reflection gets brighter and more difficult to ignore or dismiss with each step you take forward. Nothing needs to be pointed out. Comparing, competing, or actually proving something is not necessary, because people instantly begin to realize what they are not as soon as they witness what we are becoming. The majority of people don't even know why they are exhausted. They are exhausted when they get up, get sidetracked during the day, and feel like they accomplished a lot but not much in the end. It's not because they are incapable. It's not a lack of opportunities. The reason for this is because their energy is dispersed and continuously drawn in various directions by undeserving things, noise, views, comparisons, and reactions. They focus on everything. Every comment is answered. Emotion is required in every circumstance. A mental storm is created by every tiny trigger. Unbeknownst to them, they gradually release their energy into unproductive areas. You cease to leak. You began to notice the direction of your energy, mentally as well as physically. How much time did you spend contemplating others who weren't considering you? How frequently did you respond to unimportant things? How quickly distractions masquerading as urgency could divert your attention? And you choose a course of action that most people steer clear of. Control was your choice. You ceased responding to every viewpoint. You stopped having all the pointless conversations. You quit trying to prove yourself in circumstances that weren't worth it. The world wasn't cut off by you. You simply started to be picky about where you direct your energies. Everything began to change at that point, since energy doesn't vanish when it is saved. It grows. It builds up. Instead of being taken away from you, it becomes something you can control. You are utilizing your energy to get stronger while others are seeking to be noticed. You are remaining stable, focused, and grounded while they're engrossed in never-ending cycles of responding and explaining. Because you're doing more, you're not moving more quickly. Because you're squandering less, you're moving more intelligently. And it compounds that discrepancy. They may have the same potential starting position in 24 hours, but their ability to manage their energy is different. Additionally, effort becomes ineffective in the absence of control. It transforms into activity without advancement and mobility without direction. You cut off the extra. No needless responses. No attention squandered. Don't waste your emotions on things that don't advance your goals. And power is what's left. Not loud power. Not hostile. Not something that needs to be noticed. It is precise, calm, and under control. The kind of strength that manifests as discipline, consistency, and the capacity to persevere without burning out. Because you're not exhausting yourself in an attempt to prove anything. You're intentionally developing yourself. Your progress feels different because of this. It's not coerced. It's not hurried. It is not accompanied by tiredness or annoyance. It has focus, clarity, and a steady rhythm that doesn't falter under duress. Others begin to notice the difference in the meantime. They question why they are constantly exhausted, constantly preoccupied, and constantly beginning and ceasing. When they see you, they think you're doing something severe, intense, or unmanageable. However, the reality is more straightforward. Simply put, you're not squandering what they continue to give away. And when you realize it, your presence becomes heavier than it should be. People are forced to examine their own patterns, habits, and lack of control when they witness you moving forward without confusion, burnout, or ongoing struggle. You didn't expend more energy than they did, you simply stopped losing yours. Noise doesn't bother people. It gives them comfort. It provides them with something to observe, respond to, and gauge. Their aspirations are met by loud success, significant announcements, frequent updates, apparent effort, and clear victories. It's simple to comprehend, accept, and classify. Those guidelines don't apply to quiet success. It doesn't make an announcement. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't leave a trail of clear signs that people can follow. It simply grows layer by layer, out of grasp, out of sight, and out of conversation. And as a result, it produces a new type of tension. When they are unable to see clearly, they are unsure about what to do. They attempt to read you, but nothing is readily apparent. There are no urgent or desperate symptoms, no need to prove anything, and no frequent updates. Just a constant motion, just a serene presence. Simply results appear in the backdrop without any explanation. And they begin to be bothered by that lack of visibility, because individuals have time to adjust when instances they can observe your path, evaluate themselves at every turn, and convince themselves that they still have control and time. However, there is no warning when success is quiet. You go overlooked one day. You're indisputable the following day. They perceived that leap as abrupt, even if it wasn't at all abrupt. They didn't see the procedure. They failed to see the discipline, practice, and gradual accumulation of tiny gains. The attention, consistency, and sacrifice when the which with good. They just see the outcome, and that outcome seems dangerous in the absence of context, because it reveals the extent of what can occur in the absence of noise. It casts doubt on the idea that you must be visible all the time in order to advance. It challenges the notion that growth is correlated with attentiveness. People dislike it when their routines are disturbed, since it breaks the pattern they have been following. They begin to seek explanations. They attempt to ascertain how you arrived covertly. They doubt its validity, impartiality, and veracity, because acknowledging it entails acknowledging that their attention has been diverted, that their noise did not equate to advancement. Your silence becomes uncomfortable because it symbolizes something they find difficult to uphold. Patience without instant gratification, discipline without acknowledgement, and labor without praise. Few people truly put these things into practice, despite the fact that most people discuss them. Additionally, it puts pressure on those who are experiencing it, the sort that people feel within themselves, not the one you impose on them, the kind that results from understanding that progress doesn't require an audience. Validation is not necessary for that growth. For success to be genuine, it doesn't need to be noisy. No one was intimidated by you. You didn't make an effort to draw attention to yourself or make others feel inferior. However, your calm consistency had a greater impact than any words could. Excuses were eliminated, because it demonstrates that it is feasible to go without interruption, without continual awareness, and without waiting for the ideal opportunity. People are unable to act as though they are unaware of that once they witness it. Quiet achievement seems heavier than loud success because of the tag. It doesn't provide folks with an outside focus. It draws their focus within, where the true questions lie.